Hey there, it's Toasty Fresh, back once again with another kind of topic video. Again, I've just thought of, well, what I think might be a pretty interesting subject for conversation amongst my fellow gamers and collectors. And that one is, well, you guys might not think it is, guys might not think it is, and if not, then feel free to troll in the comment section below. But what I think might be a pretty interesting topic, which is the first of all the consoles you've owned. This is the first game you ever played for that console, if you can remember, and the first game that you actually went out and bought that didn't come packaged in with the console. And without further ado, I'll go to, well, what I'll class as my first console, and that was the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, I say kind of because this is a thing that we got given for Christmas, and it was a giant present between me and my brother, so I had to kind of share it, which, as you can tell, with brothers, and you know what they're like, they can be assholes at times. It didn't always work out quite so well. Anyway, what ended up happening with this is there were a local shop near us, and they did rentals, game rentals, and things like that. Kind of like that kind of mum and pop store. It was kind of an independent thing, and we rented this NES, and we got I think it was Mario and Super Mario All Stars, and we thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, we've been used to. My brother had the ZX Spectrum, and my other brother got the Commodore, and I think he was supposed to get the latest Atari, whatever was out at the time. The Atari was meant to be better, but my brother ended up they had a mix up and he got the Commodore 64. Anyway, I'm going on to a tangent, and we rented it, and we just had a blast, and we thought, wow, that was great, and we were thinking about whenever the next time we were going to rent a SNES. Anyway, Christmas rolled up, and my mum, God love her, she went out and she'd bought it from the place. It was called Oscar's, the actual shop. And she went out and bought it, and we got that. And I don't know whether we got Super Mario World as well, but that was the first ever game that I ever played for the SNES, which was Super Mario All Stars, which we just thought it was a great value for money as well back then. We were like, wow, on one cart you're getting all these games. We were pretty amazed about that. Yeah, and I mean, things didn't always work out too well though with the sharing of the console. It has to be said, because that brings me on to the next subject of the first game that I actually remember that I went out and bought, because I used to go to another shop that was kind of like a pawn shop, sold second-hand things and stuff like that. And that was the only way I could buy games at the time, because we weren't terribly rich, and I only got so much spending money per week. And I used to save it up, and I used to just buy second-hand games, and just loose from the carts. I can't remember if I actually got this boxed, and I actually discovered its name again, like when I got back into all the retro gaming and stuff like that, and that was Super Probotector Alien Rebels, which a lot of the other world outside of Europe know it as Contra. I think it's Contra 3. Contra, should I say? I'll learn to speak. And this was an absolutely amazing game. I thought this was the mutts nuts. I gotta tell you, I absolutely love this game, running and gunning, taking down aliens. It was rock solid compared to some of the other games, but immensely great. You had some epic boss battles and all the different upgrades for guns, and I thought it was brilliant. And this was a game that fell foul of the sharing of the console, because my brother went and swapped this with a friend of his for, it was International Superstar Soccer, and that was a fair game. It wasn't a bad game, but I tell you what, I shit a brick when he did that. I went absolutely crazy because I love this. I love that game, and it was a game that I bought. I was like, that's mine. I have the console shared, and it's not the games, But try telling that to your brothers. And going on, the console that I had after that, it was my brother's upgrade from a Commodore 64. He went on and bought the Amiga 600, and then when he grew up and he left home, he actually sold it to me. And then later on, in my stupidity, I went and sold it to the same pawn shop that I bought the Probotector from and all the SNES games I bought. I went and sold this machine for, I don't even know how much I sold it for. I know I got a TV and I got some other things, but it was brilliant. I had just a shit ton of floppy disks, and I mean hundreds, literally hundreds of games with it, because my brother used to just go to markets and things like that. And that was a funny thing as well. There was another kind of family owned not second hand, I mean video game shop that was near us, and it was actually a teacher from my primary school who ran it, and my brother used to go in there and he used to buy Commodore games, the Amiga, and before that, like 64. He used to buy games and things like that, and he used to just copy them with his friend and then just take them back and trade them back in. And the first game that I ever played, that I remember playing, 'cause I did watch my brother play through a hell of a lot of games, like Dark Seed and the Monkey Island games, and oh god, just loads of games. I can't even, Stunt Car Racer, Chase HQ. The list is endless, to be honest. And the first game that I went and played was Monkey Island. That's because I just had such a great time watching my brother play through that game. That it was the first game that I had to go and load up when it actually became my computer, because it was just the humour and the characters, the locations. It was just a beautiful looking game as well on the Amiga as well. And finally, then we moved on to the year, we moved on again, and I got my first ever console that was mine alone. I didn't have it passed down to me like the Amiga, and I didn't share it like the SNES, and that was the PS1. I got that the summer before I moved into high school, and I got it with a few games bundled in, and I absolutely loved that summer because I just spent half of the summer holidays after my birthday just playing through all these games, and we had some amazing games. And the first one that I remember loading up, because I got like, I think it was in a bundle with 2 pads and 5 games, and the first game that I loaded up was this one, Soul Blade, which for people in America it was known as Soul Edge. But this was an amazing. This still stands up today, I even think, from the PlayStation 1, and I can still load this up today because I've got another copy of it. Sadly, the original copy that I got and my PS1 have long since gone. But we had loads of fun with this, just having tournaments in our room. My brother would bring his mates over and things like that, and I play him. And you'd have winner stays on competitions that go on for hours with this game. It was one of the first games I thought it had real production values to it. It had an amazing intro sequence, probably one of the best intro sequences ever seen on a PlayStation 1 game. It's probably up there actually with my favourite introduction sequence. And it had 3 different soundtracks that you could choose from while you battling. You had an arcade one, you had a fully orchestral one, and then you had a remix as well, the Super Carn remix. And the other games that I got bundled in was Tomb Raider, which some people, it's a bit maligned now, and to be honest, I wasn't really big up on it because of the kind of funky controls, but of its time it was a big game, and it did have some big areas that you didn't really see on other games. When you got further inside the ruins and it kind of opened up, and the first time you saw that T-Rex, it did have a few little moments in it, but overall I wasn't too keen on that one. And I also got International Track and Field, which is a game that goes a long way towards destroying gamepads, let me tell you, because it's just a button bashing game, but it was a fun arcade game. Again, it wasn't a game that I was really high up on and that I really loved from the stack of games that I got. And the other one I got was Rage Racer. That was a really good, really fun racing game, arcade type game. Great. I went on it a bit ago, and it does look like cardboard boxes on wheels now, a little bit compared to being used to the kind of newer era. But I still really love it. It's got a really good vibe to it, a really good soundtrack to those, kind of like that very of the time of dance music being big, especially in England. Dance music, things like that, were really big. So that kind of electronic dance soundtrack that went along with it was really good. Actually, my stepsister was better than me on this though. She was really good at racing games. And another game I got was another racing game, but it's kind of a different mode, and that was Destruction Derby 2 in the fat PlayStation 2 case, those kind of big cases. Same with Tomb Raider. And this was just a really fun game where you could just destroy cars and things like that. It was really good. You could do, there were just normal races, and there were just ones that were just total destruction. And I'd love to get this game back again. I haven't actually got it myself. I could download it as an emulation, and I suppose I might go ahead and do that at one point. But yeah, I really love this game as well. And sadly, like I said, I no longer have most of those games. I do have Rage Racer again, and I've got a Tomb Raider. I got that cheap from a charity shop for £1, and I've got Soul Blade. But I've still yet to pick up that. But the first game that I'd say that I actually acquired outside of the stuff that I got bundled in, I didn't actually buy it. It was Tekken 2. And that I got in a trade with a friend of mine. I traded him International Track and Field for Tekken 2, and this was pretty much a kind of, again, a sort of the time. It was a perfect fighting game. It was brilliant. Again, great production values to this game, great introduction sequence, good characters, likable characters, the same as Soul Blade, and just really good. And they kind of just topped it off with 3, where they had the full 3D. It was fully 3D. Tekken 2 wasn't. There was only certain characters that could sidestep a little bit, but it was kind of 2.5D really. It wasn't really a fully 3D game like Soul Blade was. But yeah, that was the first game that I ever acquired outside of that. And I'd say Soul Blade was the first one that I actually bought. And moving on, I also had a Game Boy Color, and that very colour as well, the turquoise colour, which I always thought, and now looking back, is the coolest colour, to be honest, that came out for the Game Boy Color. And I got it bundled in with Worms Armageddon, which was quite a fun game, but it kind of loses some if you've not got somebody to play it with, and you can't play 2-player. I think I did have this for or at least borrowed it for the PlayStation 1 as well. And they were great little multiplayer games and that kind of party games. And it's a shame actually you don't see some kind of modern twist on that these days. Like there was Hogs of War as well for the PlayStation 1, which was a similar kind of thing but with pigs. And that was 3D. That was a cool game as well. But I kind of picked this one because the only other games that were available to get with my Game Boy Color were the kind of cash in from a Disney film or from cartoons and stuff like that, and I wasn't really interested in them. And that was probably the best of a bad bunch. And I wouldn't say Worms was a bad bunch. That was probably the only decent game that I could get. And the first game that I really remember going out and buying, now I can't remember exactly because I know I got Pokemon Red for Christmas. So that was, I don't know, I mean, that's not me going out and buying it, I suppose. So I should probably change the subject to whatever you acquired first outside of that. But Pokemon I got for a Christmas present, but I did choose it, so I sort of like buying it in a way, because I told my mum that that's what I wanted for that Christmas. But it could have been just before Christmas. I may have got Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. I can't remember. But if so, that was the first game that I ever went out and bought. And it probably was the first game that actually went out and paid for with my own money. And that was kind of just a rehash of the first game on the NES, but updated a little bit and in colour. And that was a pretty good game, really. It's just everyone knows what Mario's all about and knows that it's probably one of the finest platforms that's been made. And moving on, I advanced in technology with the Game Boy Advance, and again, that is a very colour ass blue that I had, which of the time of getting it, it was the best colour that I could buy around all the others. I think because it was a purple, there was a full purple one, and there was a clear blue one that I could find in the shops near me, and the clear like I don't know if it was meant to be red, but it was pink, basically just looked pink. So I chose the clear blue one. I mean, later on there was some cool ones like the silver and the black one, but I don't know. I still think that this clear blue one was pretty cool. And I do remember now. This is where my memory's getting a bit better. And I do remember the first game I ever played for that was the Jackie Chan Adventures, which again it was similar to the Game Boy Color. It was only cashing kind of games that I could get with it, kiddie games. And this one, though, to be honest, was one of the best kind of cash into a cartoon that I probably played. It's kind of like Double Dragon style game, and it was fun, and it was Jackie Chan, and I mean, I had a great love for Jackie Chan even then. At that age, I mean, I think it was high school. I can't remember high school age, and early high school though, and it was a fun game. I did have a lot of fun with that game actually. And the first game I can remember going out and buying for that was Pokemon Ruby. Again, I'd seen it about to come out, and just a step up in tech, I thought I gotta give that a go, and that's what I bought for that. And then it was getting onwards in high school, and for Christmas that year, 2000, I got myself a PlayStation 2, and I had to save up some serious dollar for that because I had to go in half, and my mum, she wouldn't pay for it all for Christmas, and that was a big deal. And that, I'd probably say that the PlayStation 2 was the last time that I was really, really kind of blown away with a computer on buying it, or there was a real excitement of having a computer. I mean, I don't know. There was a bit of a wow moment when I had, you'll see in the later games on the PS3 when I got the game that I got with that, but I don't know. This was one of the first ones where it was wow, and this was something, you know, a serious step up. Because I mean, I don't know when you look, there is a step up for the PlayStation 2 to the 3, but each time it seems to dissipate for me. Like the PS4 has been the lowest probably impression rate that I've had so far. In regards to the PlayStation 3, the step up has been the least impressive. But with this, I remember clearly I got FIFA 2001 bundled in with this, which was quite good. Of its day, I remember it being good, although it was easy to exploit with the spinning. You could do a 360 spin and just get past people every time. And back then, it was just a touch of a button to do that. And I got Dynasty Warriors, which, although it might not seem it, that was kind of a wow game then because of all the people on the screen at once. That was kind of like a whoa. You know, I've never seen this before. And although it sounds weird because it was just a button bashing game and it's never going to be in anyone's top 10 of PS2 games ever, that was impressive to me as I saw it then. I was slightly less impressed when I played the first PS3 one, but that one at the time it was impressive, and I was like, wow, look at this. And I remember I also got a DVD. That was the first ever DVD I ever owned, was Gladiator as well, for the on DVD, which was back when DVDs were £20 or whatever it was. And that was the first, I owned the first ever DVD out of anyone in my household. No one else had a DVD player then. And the first game that I ever went out and bought was a case of necessity, really, and that was Orphan, because I had so much money saved up, but I had to go out and buy a memory card, and that set me back 27 notes. So this was the only game that was in my bracket, and it was still, I think, $37.99 or something like that, and the games were all $44.99 or something like that. So it wasn't a huge difference, but it was the only game that I could just about stretch to get in at the time. And it was a strange one. There hasn't really been a game with similar controls, to be honest, that I can think of. It was a strange one, kind of like it was based off a manga, and it was weird. It was like a sorcery kind, obviously with the title "Sign of Sorcery," kind of sorcery title. But yeah, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't brilliant anyway. Put it that way. But it was different. I'll give it that. It was different. And then the Xbox, and I got this one, the Crystal Edition, back in it was around about 2004. That was the first game that I ever paid for with actually my own money that was from a job. It wasn't spending money or anything like this. Money that I actually earned. I was an apprentice, earning apprentice wages as a painter and decorator, and I'd saved up a bit of money, and rather than just blowing it on nights out like I usually did, I went out and splashed out on a new, what is it? And I got 6 games of it and 2 crystal pads as well, and I got a pretty good deal. It was a pretty good mix of games as well, like the PlayStation 1. I got a pretty good mix, and the first game was a game that really left the impression on me, and that was Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, because that again was another game where I was like, okay, I've never seen much of anything like this before, with just the scale. I'd never heard of Elder Scrolls before I'd seen this game. I looked at this game and I was like, okay, what the hell is this about? I had no clue. From the front of it, I didn't even know, but it was the best bundle, because a lot of the other ones were family bundles and stuff like this. This was the gamers bundle, so it was, I think it was called or something like that. And I played this and I got hooked, and I played this for hours, and it was just so big and there was so much to do, so many weapons. It was just immense, and the sort of scale of it I'd never known before. I'd never played PC games and things like that. So that really was a game that opened my eyes up a little bit anyway, and that opened my eyes up to a new franchise as well. And another game I got was Time Splitters 2, which was another amazing game for a shooting game. That was pretty fun. But the game that left a bigger impression on me was Burnout 3. That was really a fun game, and I was happy to get that one in the set because I used to play endlessly. My mate had a Burnout 2. And while I was on the subject of going back to the actual criteria that I was going on about, the first game that I ever played for the Xbox was Halo, and that was on my friend's Xbox, and we did co-opt the whole way through the game, and that was cool how you could go through a story and go through the campaign with somebody and actually bring your friend along for the ride and stuff like that. And you always had fun, and obviously you did the old tactic of when you got to tough parts, just going on kamikaze runs on the first game, because you could just stick two of the plasma grenades to you and just run in amongst them, because as long as the other guy survived, you'd respawn. Afterwards, they made it so if you died, one of you died, you had to restart from wherever the last respawn point was. So they kind of curtailed that. But I remember having a lot of fun with Halo with my good friend on that. But yeah, Burnout 3 again was great. Plus you could listen to custom soundtracks, so you could just put on whatever you wanted and listen to that. So I used to just put on dance tracks from around the time and blast around tracks and things like that. And that was just a great fun arcade race. Probably one of the best arcade gate races I think that's ever been probably released, arguably anyway. And I also got Rayman Hoodlum Havoc, which, to be honest, to be fair, I never really played it. I think I put it on a couple of times and didn't really play it. I was at the point where I didn't really play platformers, to be honest. I kind of had my fill during the SNES and play it PS1 era, and I wasn't really interested at that point. And then the other game I got was Turok Evolution, which was okay, but it wasn't brilliant. So they were kind of the first games. And I also got Midway Arcade Treasures, which was a cool game, and introduced me to Smash TV, which was an amazing game. The best game on there, probably by a mile, I think. Gauntlet and stuff like that, but they were fun as well, and Paperboy and Defender and all those famous ones, Spy Hunter. They were all great too, though. And the first game that I ever went out and bought for that, and I think it was Knights of the Old Republic 2, as I recall. It was either that or it was Halo 2. I can't fully remember. But I'm going to plump for Knights of the Old Republic, and that was one of my all time favourite RPGs, probably. Absolutely loved that game. Great game, great little story, and probably one of the best things to come out from Star Wars in a long time, if you ask me. And later on, it was about a little bit after the Xbox, I went ahead and bought the Dreamcast. And I'm going to hurry up now because I'm waffling on for ages and you guys probably ain't going to be interested in all this. So, long story short, I got Soul Calibur 2. That was amazing. Really impressed me. Even though it was a couple of years after release, that game still looked beautiful, damn it. That actually impressed me. That showed me that the Dreamcast was actually, a great machine, even though it had kind of whatever you so-called lost the console wars. But that was a great game. And I also got a strangest game, another one based on a manga, Sword of the Berserk, which actually goes for a fair few quid today, like 20 odd, 30 quid or something. Sometimes you see that up for. But I had that mint as well. And that was a weird game. It was kind of like Onimusha kind of thing. It had stiff controls, kind of like a Resident Evil, but you were hacking and slashing things, that kind of thing. And the first game that I went out and bought for that was from the same shop that I rented, that we got the SNES from all those years ago, and I got it for I don't think it was about 20 odd pound, and I got a later on I went out and bought a light gun, and I bought Confidential Mission, which is kind of like a time crisis type, but with a James Bond slant on it, where you have special gadgets and things like that for certain bits of it. And that was a cool little game, very arcadey. It was in at the arcades as well. I actually saw it in Blackpool once, and I had to go and stick a couple of 50p's in that. I also bought a PSP. I bought that on release when it first came out, thinking wow, that looks amazing. And I got Ridge Racer with that, and that was good because it had all the old kind of classic tracks on it, and it had some classic soundtracks as well. And it was really a fun arcade game to have on there, and it was pretty good, and it did look pretty sweet as well at the time. The first game that I went out and bought for that was Liberty City Stories, which was another game that was kind of impressive. Really, the scale and the graphics for a handheld game had never been seen before, really. I was impressed all the years ago by the the Sega handheld Game Gear. That's why I forgot what it was called then for a second. My brain went into freeze mode. That impressed me, but the battery life on that was absolutely horrendous. One of my friends brought it round, and I was playing Sonic, absolutely loving it in colour. But that's gone on to a different subject. But yeah, this game, it was Grand Theft Auto. It had all the same quality that you come to expect and humour, and it was just huge. It was really impressive how they squeezed all that into a handheld. And then I went on and got the PS3, which my brother thought it was going to be the same kind of thing as the Wii, where there was a high demand, so he bought two of them, then couldn't get rid of it, so he sold it to me for a little bit of a knockdown price. And then I was stuck with it without a game until he went and bought me the first game I ever played for it, which was Oblivion, which was probably the perfect game to get at the time because it was probably the best game that was out for it, and it lasted hours and hours, and there was loads to do, and it was just really impressive as well graphically, really pretty, and it's still even pretty now. If you put it on now, you look at that and it still looks beautiful. So that was a really good game, and he got me that. That was about 50 quid, I think, when that came out. And later on, I went out and when I'd got some work and things like that, I went out and got myself FIFA oh 08. And that was another one that was kind of impressive because it was the first one that really started to capture that being in a football stadium kind of atmosphere. Even though you can say, yeah, they bring it out every year, and I'm actually on the same boat. I'm with anyone who does sort of, I have heavy criticism for it now in that it just gets shipped out every year and nothing much changes. And for the 360, it's a tricky one because I don't really own one. It's my girlfriend's. But when we move together, it's kind of, I count it kind of as something. But in my defence, I have been out and bought something for it that was just for me because she's only really into sports games. And I went and bought Halo 3 purely to complete the trilogy because I played the first two games, so it was a game that I was interested in. I got it cheapish because it had been out for a while, and that was just to complete the storyline, really. I did think it was a little bit overrated after playing it, but yeah, it was a good game though, still okay. And for the PC, I was the first person in my house as well to own a proper PC kind of laptop, and mine was a Sony Vaio laptop. And the first PC game though that I actually played was on my friend's desktop. When his sister got a desktop, she got this free with it, Zeus Master of Olympus, which is kind of like a city building game, which was actually really addictive, and it was a really fun game with the Greek mythology and stuff like that, and that had a little bit of humour to it as well. And that was a really fun game for like a city building game, really fun. It's better than all this crap that you get nowadays, like Farmville and all that kind of stuff that's on that you get people to try and download on your tablets and things like that. And the first game that I actually went out and bought was Dungeon Siege. So I just looked at it, and it was the first kind of dungeon crawling, loot hunting, PC kind of RPG game. I had played, The Summoner, which was kind of one for the PS2, which was a really good game as well. This was the first one that I'd actually played for that, and it is pretty old now, and I think it was a few years old when I played it, but I thought it was fun. There's probably better ones out there, but that was a pretty good one all the same. And with the DS, it's pretty obvious the first one's going to be Super Mario, because everybody's probably played Super Mario, I'm guessing, as the first one. But the first game that I actually went out and bought for me, because that was, again, my girlfriend's, sorry, and that was Pokemon Pearl. No, not the Wii, the Pokemon Pearl. And with the Wii, again, it's pretty obvious it's going to be Wii Sports, because anyone who's tried it, my brother bought it first. At a point when I was living with him, I'd moved back to the area that I grew up in, and we shared a house together for a little bit, and he had one of those, so we used to have Wii Sports nights and things like that. But I've had two since. I had one and got rid of it, and then recently I got one again on the cheap to play with my little girl. And I got WarioWare Smooth Moves was the first game that I went out and bought that wasn't bundled in with that, because I got a huge stack of games with it as well, which I'm not going to bother naming them all for time reasons. And another one that's been late on the list, because I never owned one up until last year, was it? I don't know, within the last couple of years, and that was the N64. And obviously for this one, the first game that I ever played, well, I won't say obviously, really. I mean, there were other games released at the time, but it was Super Mario 64, because my brother bought one back in the day, and I went round to his house, and I think he even brought it over to our back home to show us, and that was Mario 64. So that was a pretty impressive at the time to see, Mario in 3D and things like that. Not the best game, really, when you look back at it and you look at other games that came out later on. Now, the first game that I ever bought myself when I got mine, because I don't think I got it with any games, I bought one cheap on eBay, and then later on I got a pretty good deal of getting 3 games for like a £5 plus postage, and one of them was an absolute amazing game and one of my favourites from back in the day, and that was WCW versus NWO Revenge. And each title that subsequently came out was the word in wrestling gaming at the time. It was the best wrestling game. I'll probably still hold my hands up and say that Revenge and WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy, are the best wrestling games ever made. And it took PlayStation up until releasing the SmackDown games to even come close to that kind of gameplay and things like that. But I absolutely love those games. I used to go around to my friend's house and we'd play those games and things like that. I wasn't even a massive WCW fan. Being in England, we didn't really see it, and we didn't have cable until later on, so we didn't really see them. I remember it used to be on a Thursday night. You'd have Thunder come on, and I'd watch that every now and again. But I was mainly a WWF fan. And in that bundle, I also got International Superstar Soccer 64, which is kind of fun, but it was looking pretty dated by the time I played it. And I got Fighter's Destiny with that bundle, so it's kind of tied with 3 games that I actually bought first. And that was a fun game. I remember my brother having that as well for the N64, and it was a tough game to master. I remember there's some really hard challenges to that as a challenge mode. And so that's they're all the consoles that I can think of that I've owned. The first games that I played from, and then the first games that I actually went out and bought. And also another one that I'll just add as well as a little bonus level, and that is, and I'll be interested to see what everybody else's is, and that's what was the first arcade game you ever played? And mine is Mortal Kombat, because I remember playing that in a local taxi rank. They had quite a large waiting area thing, and they had Mortal Kombat set up in there. And that's what I had set up. They had set up in there, should I say. And that was a really good game, and I remember playing that, and my brother teaching me all the combos and things like that for that game, because he'd already chucked loads of money into it himself. That was before we kind of went out and bought it for the SNES and things like that, which I later had it for the SNES, which was kind of a bit of a letdown because it didn't have the blood and things like that. It was kind of the PG version. But yeah, so that's what I really wanted to know anyway. The result of this long-winded ramble was, what was the first game you ever played for each of the consoles you owned, and which game was the first one you went out and bought? So that's all I got time for, though, really, with all this rambling I've done. And I hope to hear what you've got to say about it. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.